enlightening perception that you shared, because that is indeed what a lot of people have come to terms with. I know that I had the opportunity to interview Stanley Campbell when he ran for. Actually, he ran against Rick Scott, and in his run, they really didn't. They act like he wasn't even out there because the Democratic Party had already chosen their person.
Exactly. In fact, one of the things that the president of the Pinellas County Democrats said to me is that the DCCC is not going to support you. He had made calls. The DCCC is the group that brings money to the table for local seats that they think are winnable. He had already created an obstacle. If I was the only candidate that was running for that seat, then there should not have been any hindrance to me receiving the funding that I needed to make my campaign more noticeable and more successful. Now, the party or the Democratic clubs have supposedly this step back, don't endorse anybody until the primary is over. Then they coalesce behind that person that emerges. I was the only one running for that seat. There was no reason that I could not have gotten into the various areas where Democrats were prevalent, whether I had DCCC funding. There's no reason why not, other than the fact that I was black and they did not want me to break that so-called glass ceiling.
It's not like you can't become a congressman, because you can, and you can come become a congressman from right here in this area. But what is going to happen is the black community is going to have to be proactive. The same way the Republicans, and I kept telling people, I didn't know exactly who it was. I didn't know it was the Republican Party that was doing it. But I did alert the community, listen, you own homes here and you have the power now. But if they build an apartment complex and put it in your neighborhood, they have now outnumbered you, because that holds at least 1,000 plus units. And that's exactly what they did. I saw apartment complexes that were already fully leased out and the people hadn't even done their grand opening. You know why? Because they had already brought their people here with remote jobs. So they didn't need to didn't need to
the economy didn't have
deal
to
with support them. The economy, the local economy did not have to absorb or support them in order for them to have sustainability in the area, because they know that's a part of politics, to box people out in that way.
Sure.
So they covered that avenue. They had a place to live. They covered that avenue. And they got their voters registration here. They had a residence. So the rest is history.
Yeah.
They did this not just here. I'm quite sure they did this in a lot of areas where the Democratic Party, they really out-strategized the Democrats, and they put their money where their mouth is. And if the black community is going to be able to get any of the seats that we want to have our true representation to represent us in places like Congress, then we're going to have an effective plan way before election time.
About to sneeze. Well, my opinion of the Democratic Party is that it's one of the weakest, most passive group of people I've ever seen in history. As far as gentrification and outnumbering as a strategy, absolutely. The question becomes where the hearts and the interests, the core values of those people moving in are. Because yes, they can outnumber us. They generally vote more than our people vote, because historically our vote has not accomplished what we were promised. And so yes, they can elect candidates after their own kind. The question is, are they humanists? Are they people who believe in the fundamental, as Martin Luther King said, the content of one's character? If those persons possess those ideals and those core values, then we have a chance of, yes, diversity in government, diversity in various offices. If those people come to town and they vote after their own kind, which means class and race, then ultimately every visible opportunity of African Americans in government will diminish. And unfortunately, the only thing that has really brought us attention and resources has been when black people are pushed into a place where they revolt. Then suddenly things change. Now, whether this political environment will tolerate that remains to be seen. but you can only push African Americans or any group so far before they rebel. So my hope is that the people who are moving in, that they think will strategically remove black representation from the council and from other areas, will be people who have the kind of personalities, the kind of core values that would say, I don't care what the color, what the gender of the candidate is, I want the best person to represent me. And if that person is able to convince me that they in fact have the policies and the principles that are necessary to make a difference, they'll get my support. That's my hope for the people that are moving here. But I know that it's strategic and that it could blow up in our faces at any time in the near future.
Oh, definitely, because people that are coming from different places, like for instance, when you have a pact of people that pack out literally an entire apartment complex, and you see the license plates, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Washington D.C. You see Boston, Massachusetts. You see certain license plates, what's coming along with that. So they already have their friends, they already have their family, they already have their core values, and they're coming to set up what they are already a part of in your backyard. That's usually how it works.
Well, in general, black people get the energy that they're not accepted or welcome, which is why you don't see many of them downtown, along Beach Boulevard, and other places where now it's new, the amenities are fresh. They don't feel welcome. And in a lot of cases, they're made to know that they're not welcome. And the same thing will happen in our communities. When enough gentrifiers move in, places where you might have grown up will suddenly be places where you're not welcome. And if you're seen walking down the street, the police will soon come to you and demand an ID in areas where you, your parents, your grandparents once used to live. However, I will say this. God has demonstrated that he's on the side of the oppressed from the time that the Bible was created, where God self-disclosed his loyalty, if you will, his penchant toward the fatherless, the stranger, the sojourner. I believe that beside everything else, it's been God who's been the wind beneath our wings. And somehow and some way, despite all of the challenges and all of the strategies, as in the case of Joseph's brother, Joseph said, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That's our hope. He's done it before. I believe he'll do it again.
And your